Yeah, you can look at me or yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks so much. So, thanks so much, Liz, for coming down here to Melbourne.
Okay.
It's really a wonderful opportunity to meet you finally in person, and thanks for your good work in your blogging, all the posts. I think they're very informational, very educational.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, one of my my brother, right? He's now in Malaysia. Was talking to another writer and happened to know, this lady in Adelaide, which is you, because he follows some of the blogs as well, and she was also interested to, probably migrate, a few years later. Yeah. Okay, so could you start by giving us a brief introduction about yourself?
Where shall I begin? I was a journalist. I'm going to be a journalist again for the past 15 years or so, and then I think around 2009 I decided to apply for a visa. I didn't really give it a very thorough think. It was one of those bucket list things.
I see.
So I just said, okay lah, apply lah, won't get one. Yes. I would advise people not to apply for a visa like that. So I applied and everyone said no, except one agent.
I see.
When he said yes, I was like, you cannot want, never mind, just fill the papers.
Right.
So I did. I think I've always wanted to move abroad. It's not just Australia. I wanted to go maybe Singapore, New York, whatever, but Australia seemed like logical because I spent a year there, I know the country.
Yeah.
So it's like going back to familiar territory. So I applied for the visa, I got something called 475. The whole process was arduous.
Really?
Sometimes I was just thinking, why did I do this again? Like, for a bucket list. But a few times, I really thought I was not going to get it and I was a bit relieved.
Right.
Because my life was very good in Malaysia. And I knew what was actually going on in Australia because I did I'm very good at researching, you can say. And what I saw was not scary. It was a bit scary. But I think around 2011 I got my visa. And that's the time I realized, damn, I really have to seriously think about it. And for 1 year I couldn't decide. It was really hard because I just felt it is a one in a lifetime kind of opportunity, but at the same time I have no idea what I'm doing there. It's like I did have ideas about changing my career.
Were you at the start at that time?
Yeah, I was at the start. I was very happy with my life there.
Right.
Actually,
As a journalist.
Yeah, I felt that my career was going somewhere.
Yes.
I love my colleagues. It's a good company. But I also felt that I could go further. I wanted to do something extraordinary in my life.
Yes.
Be brave. Because I think when I was a kid, I was a very daring person. And I always strive for what I wanted.
Yeah.
People would tell me no and I ignore them. But over the years I became really comfortable and I felt as if I was in a golden cage. Too afraid to venture out to the outside world because everything is so comfortable and so predictable and so safe.
Right.
And I needed to challenge myself, so I decided to go. But it wasn't easy because that time, I don't know whether it's fate or the universe, just a month before I went to Australia, I was headhunted by 4 companies.
Really?
I had to turn down all of them, and each one was like a stab through the heart because these were all my dream positions.
Exactly.
All got director, manager, all that in the title. But I turned them all down because I felt that I really needed to know if I could do this. So I went on,
Right.
And when I landed in Adelaide, I cried.
I see.
I cried, what did I do to myself? But no regrets, to be honest, even though the life in Adelaide was not, I would say it's not easy.
Yes.
Not easy, especially if you have a 475 visa. It's
Yes.
extraordinarily difficult because you have to fulfill so many rules. You've got to prove that you stayed in the designated place for 2 years.
Yes.
That means you've got to compile all kinds of documents. And the process of compiling that document itself is like, it's one thing I learned about Australia, they sure like their paperwork.
Yes.
To get this paperwork, you need that paperwork. But you can't get the paperwork if you can't get this. So it's like a whole massive undertaking just to get paperwork. Like for example, to prove my stay in Australia, I have to produce things like bills, but mobile bills are not allowed. So you got to do contracts. Rent contracts. So you have to go to places where they provide rent contracts, and not all landlords give that. So that's just one aspect. The other aspect is you've got to work 35 hours per week. Oh, that's a pain, you know. And as you know, in Australia, not everything is done above board. You know, it's like my first company didn't provide proper contracts, and I wrote about it and stuff like that. So if you're a PR, I think you don't have to worry too much.
Yes.
But if you're on that visa, you really have to prove that you had proper work and you had 35 hours of work.
Right.
Yeah.
I see. So, did you enroll in a course or something like under the 457? Maybe you can share with us what 457 is about.
475.
Sorry, 475.
Yeah, the 475 visa is a regional sponsored visa. So South Australia sponsored me to come and stay there and work. Basically, I can study there as well.
Right.
So you have to stay there for a minimum of 2 years and work there.
Right.
And you also need to work 35 hours per week.
Do you have to enroll in a course? No, right?
No.
Okay, alright, it's a bit different from that.
No.
Yeah.
I had big plans when I came to Australia. I didn't really want to settle down and work straight away.
Yes.
I wanted to travel.
If I remember, I think you bought a car, right? A mini minor or some.
Oh, no, that was later. I wanted to like backpack around South Australia. In fact, I already had arrangements to stay at Barossa as a working. They call it work stay, where you stay at a place to work and then you get free accommodation. It's like a nice cultural exchange.
Yes.
But I got derailed because at that time the South Australian government decided to have a Skills for All scheme, where they sponsor you to study certain subjects. It was too good an opportunity to pass up, and nursing was one of the sponsored ones. That means instead of paying 6,000 per year, you pay 500. Yeah, so I decided to do aged care because I've always wanted to be in a medical profession, like a fantasy. You know? So I said, okay, this is a great way to find out whether it's for me. You know, start from the bottom. I've always been like that, even as a journalist. I started when I was 18 as a freelancer. So I said, okay, this is a great way to find out about industry. So, yeah, I studied it. I only paid me $200 or something, and went into the industry. Yeah, eyes really got open up there. It's not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much for your, very good introduction. Very informative, and now we also understand why you come to Australia. So, do you have any, I know it's a very difficult position to make, especially at a time when your career is starting to take off in Malaysia. Obviously, it's not easy to make that decision. In fact, I would say it's a dilemma actually. So, how would you advise young people? Because on the other hand, you also say that it's a good experience, and you wouldn't have exchanged it. You wouldn't have lived it differently, right? Because, so how would you advise somebody?
Those who's considering the same thing.
Exactly, because I see so many young people today, right? They have this career,
They have to be really sure that they're willing to let go of their career. Because I thought I was, but I realized that being a writer was more to me than I thought, and they also need to be very open-minded to pursue other things, no matter how low or how basic or minimum or whatever you got to start from. Also, on the other hand, I also say that life is more than career.
Yes.
Even though I would say that my career I wouldn't say halted but it took a different route, because during my time in Australia, I also still continued with my writing. I was still a columnist for the Star for I think a year, and then I still freelance for them, and I started writing on my novels. I wrote by the time by the third year in Adelaide, I've already written my third novel.
Wow.
Yeah, and it really helped me push my boundaries. If I was still a journalist, I think I really doubt that I would be advanced that far, because working in another field opened my eyes, gave me a fresh perspective. It also gave me a hunger for my writing, and it pushed me on, So I would say that it's pretty hard hard question to answer, because it really boils down to how you approach this. Like, for example, how much is your career, how does it mean to you, or how much does it mean to you? If it means a lot, then you got to really think seriously, because I think, yes, there are some people who could continue their careers here, but a lot of them can't. So how are you going to deal with that? And even if you do get a job, which is a wonderful thing, especially in this really tough economy. The working conditions are very different,
Yes.
as you know.
Exactly.
I think in Malaysia, our colleagues are warmer,
Yeah.
and they can even become like family. But here, there's a very clear separation between work and family. So you can get very lonely at the workplace.
Yes.
That's what I found, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, you gotta really reinvent yourself.
Exactly.
Really approach to be a successful migrant. You really have to tell yourself, I got to think about things very differently now. I have to approach things differently now. And honestly, it's really no shame if you decided that no, I still want to continue with my career.
Exactly.
I still want to pursue opportunities. That's one thing I find very strange, of course. Is that it's like even before I migrated, this is a trend I noticed among Malaysians. In Malaysia and Australia, it's like Australia is the end all and be all. There's no turning back. And I find I got really fascinated by that. So I started talking and interviewing people who returned and say why they did that. And I realized there's a huge stigma against returning. And these people, a lot of times when they leave Australia, they like live quietly without telling anybody.
Yeah, right.
Because I think a lot of Malaysians, both sides don't understand.
Yes.
And I try to understand because I just find that, I don't know, it's fascinating, but I realized that maybe Malaysians have too great an expectation about life in Australia. Yeah, and maybe because I've travelled extensively before I went to Australia, my eyes are quite open.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I think before you went to Adelaide, I don't see anybody really writing about it. I mean, I've been here 10 years, so you Google around, you don't see that so often. Yeah, I think one of the inspiration for us to write that little book. Yeah, it's like people like yourself, you see, and the other guy, his name I think is Danny. Yeah, which I talked to him. I met him one time. He lives in Melbourne. You live in Adelaide, so you share your journey, and I think it's really helping a lot of Malaysians who want to come over or who are trying to make a decision, still deciding. So yeah, really appreciate that contribution. Now, as aspiring writer myself, like I want to improve some writing skills and all that.
Okay.
And I have the personal interest in interviewing you because I like to know, like, how did you discover this love for writing? You see, and what gives you the confidence, like, to make that step when you were 18 years old to be a freelance writer? You see.
It's because I'm very stubborn. I don't know, to me it was like, I think I was 10 years old when I started writing creatively. But I didn't really start with writing, I drew comics.
Oh, okay.
It was more like I wasn't a great artist, but I love telling stories. I drew comics and I'll be like, during class or that, which is not good, and it was just came naturally to me to do that, and it felt good to just. And I would write, in exercise books, draw this life of this girl who lives overseas. I've always wanted to live overseas. So, and I drew a story about her. She lives in this huge mansion and she's an astronomer and all that.
Okay.
But even then, I just did it because I wanted to, and I liked it. And I don't know, I just did it. And I think by the time I was 12, I still remember I was at tuition and I was like doodling on my. By then I had this passion in astronomy. That's another thing about me. I love learning about subjects. I pack subjects I'm obsessed about. Yeah. So when between ages 11 to 12, I was obsessed about astronomer. I was going to be an astronomer and a scientist. So I researched every book I could about astronomy and wrote a book about it.
All right.
And I remember it was stapled, just a couple pages stapled, and I drew and wrote a book. And my tuition teacher saw it and said, I've never seen anyone do it before. And she was like looking at it, and to me it's like, why not?
Yeah.
That's my attitude. Like, what's the big deal? And then I just continued writing. I think when you start getting older, that's when the expectations come in. You should be a doctor, a lawyer. And my parents didn't put that on me, but I was a very ambitious person. Even when I was 12, kids my age were worrying about boyfriends. I was like, how do I get a career? That's what I was thinking about when I was 12. So I thought it was practical to be a doctor. know, but I wanted to be a doctor at UN or something. And then by the time I was in Form 5, it changed to be a lawyer. But throughout this time, I was still writing. I just didn't think that it was a practical career to pursue.
I see.
But I don't know what changed. I think I finished my A-levels. I was one of the few that got A's in pre-law. I was about to go to law. Everybody was happy that I was going to law, you know.
Yes.
And I remember I was standing at the balcony at Sunway College, looking out, picturing my life as a lawyer, and realized I was going to hate it.
Right.
And I realized I can't do this. So a week before I was about to enroll in law school, I told my parents, okay, I'm not doing it. I'm going to be a journalist. And I'm going to be a writer. And my parents all freaked out. Relatives all came and tried to encourage me to, you know, be practical, you know. But I've been the sort of person that I'm very determined to pursue what I want at all costs, and I ignored everybody. So to prove them wrong, because they told me I was not going to like the job. You know, it's boring. You hate it. They're okay, all right. So I called up the Star. I said, I would like to write for the Star. How do I go about it? So I was very lucky. I spoke to the right editor, because some editors would say, "Who are you? You're only 17 years old." And this editor was very open. So she invited me in, and back then I didn't have many samples. There was just one letter that got published and stuff. And yeah, she said, okay, just contribute. So that's when we started. I contributed to New Straits Times and The Star, and at the same time I got freelance work with advertising agencies. So I explored both areas to see which one. I like both equally.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
Were you studying at that time?
Yeah.
Writing freelance, right? So,
yeah, I was studying.
Right, so what did you study?
Advertising and marketing.
Right, I see.
It was a very good idea. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I see. Wow, that takes a lot of courage, I suppose.
I guess so, but like I said, never thought about it as a courageous thing, which is something I had to do.
How about your siblings? Can you tell us a bit about your siblings so I know your context, you know? Like growing up, you know, what do they do? You know?
Okay, let me see, my sister is in business administration, but she's in the US now, she lives there. My brother is like a creative guy, he's in 3D animation.
I see.
Yeah.
So are you the second?
I'm the eldest.
Eldest, I see. Right. So I guess you have some pretty much influence them as well, like especially your brother, animation,
I have no idea.
You know, drawing and art.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the only thing I influence them is that to be stubborn now. I said, don't listen to anyone, just do what you want.
See. So do you have anything to, maybe, like, you know, how would you advise or give some suggestions to anyone who really want to make that move to come back? I mean, to go back to Malaysia or, you know, to elsewhere, you know, like.
I suppose you got to understand it's not going to be easy as well, but you got to understand why you're coming back as well, and not to beat yourself up about it. And I have to admit, even though I was very clear-headed about why I want to come back, I did beat myself up until I failed, you know. And sometimes the voices around you can be very strong. And I cannot blame people for coming back without telling anyone, because you just don't want to keep explaining yourself 10,000 times. And then when you explain to people, they don't seem to believe you. So it's like, that can get very discouraging. And I think you just have to be aware that yes, repatriation is going to be difficult because it's like culture shock.
Yes.
You have changed inside. No matter what people see from the outside, you have changed already.
Yes.
I've changed a lot the past few years, you know, and it was a shock to the system when I went back. And one of my friends said, just judging from the way I behaved at one certain point during our encounter back home, he said, you're not changed at all. It was like a smack to the face, and I realized that either that person doesn't want to see me changed, or I've changed a lot, but it's not evident. And it's a very strange feeling to know that everything around the world, everything in Malaysia is sort of the same, but you are completely different. Yeah, your mindset is completely changed.
Right.
Yeah, so that can be quite challenging to handle, and of course the practical aspect like traffic jams, the work culture again.
Yes.
Yeah, and then having to fit back. You know, I've gotten so used to the clear distinction between work and family here. I don't think I will be as warm as I used to be.
Right.
I probably won't talk much now.
I see.
I used to be very busybody, talking to everybody, but I think in Australia it's like hunker down and work, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that was my